Some men build walls. Christopher Hale built a column of rising heat. He remembered a colder room, his wife's fingers slipping from his grip, a fire that was never enough. But that was last winter. Now he was finishing a cabin unlike any other.
You're really going to sleep above that fire, Hale. Smoke will kill you before dawn.
Smoke doesn't rise the same as heat. I've planned for that.
Planned. You'll be a dead fool by morning.
They left him to his folly. That night, Christopher lit the fire and watched the smoke curl away through the vent. The loft was simple. A bed, a railing, and a column of rising warmth.
She would have told me to try.
He closed his eyes, and the town held its breath. Some men build walls. This man bet his life on a column of heat. The smoke slid away through the metal pipe, a separate path carved in the dark.
Heat rises. She said it once, watching a flame lean. Not smoke, heat.
Outside, Eric Lund watched the cabin. No smoke poured from the upper window.
Not a cough, not a cry. He's probably dead.
In the loft, the air was still and warm. Frost gripped the glass, but his face stayed calm.
Her fingers were so cold. This warmth is not for me. It's proof.
The hours bled together. The fire fed the loft with every ounce of its rising breath.
Morning will tell us if he's dead or just lucky.
But in the loft, luck had nothing to do with it. The heat rose, a steady river of comfort. The chimney breathed its thin plume into the frozen night, while the town shivered and waited for a sign. Morning light broke over the ridge. The cabin door swung open, and Christopher stepped out, unharmed.
You are alive. No smoke in your lungs.
Not a breath of it. The vent took the smoke away. See for yourself.
He led them inside, tracing the pipe that carried smoke, the flue above the fire, the path heat alone could follow.
A strong north wind could reverse that draft. Then your loft fills with smoke, and you're a dead man.
I know. I can build a wind guard. It won't be perfect, but it'll hold.
It's only a matter of time before that loft becomes a coffin.
He turned and walked away, the crowd following, leaving Christopher in the cold morning light. A wind guard or not, the first real storm would be the test. And the town would be watching. They called him fool and worse. But the column of heat had kept him alive once. Now all he could do was wait for the wind. The cold snap swallowed the valley whole. Frost bloomed inside walls, and breath turned to ice in the lungs.
Mary, she's barely moving. The cold is killing her. We have to do something.
He remembered the warm glow in Christopher's window, the fool who slept above his fire.
Hale, they say you have warmth to spare. My daughter is freezing. Please.
Get them inside. The loft will keep them safe. The smoke vents separately.
The smoke. If it fills the loft, we won't know until it's too late.
I weathered the night without a cough. The heat rises. The smoke leaves. Trust that.
They climbed the ladder, Anna shivering in her mother's arms. The fire crackled below, and the column of heat began its work.
He's got a family in there. That loft is a coffin. Someone stop him.
The crowd swelled, torches flaring. Inside, the warmth held. Outside, the anger rose. In the loft, the shivering stopped. Anna's fingers uncurled, and her face went still for the first time in days. Christopher fed the fire and listened. Above, the loft held only the slow breathing of sleep.
I thought we'd freeze. You gave us warmth. How can I repay you?
Survive. That's all. The heat rises for everyone.
Upstairs, Mary wept without sound. Her tears were warm on Anna's hair. The cold had no hold here.
Hale, open the door. We need to see that child still breathing.
They're warm and alive. If I open this door, the cold takes them. Number.
Then we break it down. You don't gamble with children's lives.
He shoved the heavy table against the door. The mob's fists pounded like hammers on wood. The warning on the door screamed its threat. Inside, the column of heat held steady against the rage. The mob's anger froze before the door did. Hours passed, and the shouts faded into the groan of pines. When Christopher unbarred the door at dawn, the world was white and still, except for a single figure with a rifle.
If that family is dead, I'll call it murder, and the whole valley will know.
Come see for yourself then. The ladder is there.
Eric climbed, rifle still in hand. At the top, he braced for bodies, but found a child stretching in a nest of blankets.
Mama, I'm thirsty. Is it morning?
They're alive. No smoke, no frost. Dumb luck, a calm night, that's all. Wait till the wind shifts.
He stormed off, rifle slung over a shoulder stiff with pride. Christopher stood in the doorway, saying nothing. The family was safe, but the war of belief was only beginning. Eric Lund had seen the proof and called it a trick of the weather. 2 nights later, the wind came screaming down the ridge, a storm born of ice and fury. Christopher woke to the taste of smoke. The loft was filling with thin, acrid haze.
The wind reversed the draft. The flap isn't enough. I have to fix the chimney from outside.
He stumbled into the storm, coat snapping like a whip. The ladder to the roof was slick with ice.
If I freeze here, all this was for nothing. She would never forgive me.
Each rung was a battle. His fingers numbed, and the wind tore at his balance like a living thing. He reached the chimney and drove a tin extension into place with frozen hands, cursing the smoke below. A gust ripped across the roof. His boot slipped on ice. He swung by one hand, the ground far below. Somehow he clung on, the cold stealing the last heat from his bones. Below, the fire still burned, smoke leaking into his haven. He had to get back inside. But the wind was not finished with him yet. Neither was the smoke. The tin cowl caught the wind, and the backdraft broke. Smoke streamed cleanly up the pipe again. He half slid, half fell down the icy ladder, and shouldered through the door, gasping. Frostbite had already begun its work on his fingers. The fire was still alive, and now so was he.
She told me once, you can't force heat to rise faster. Trust the physics.
The answer wasn't force. It was balance. A vane that turned with the wind, always keeping the vent downwind. With shaking hands, he drew a counterweighted vane, a simple pivot that would make the wind his ally. The lines were crooked, but the idea was clear. He would need iron and a pivot, but the mountain had both.
This will prove them wrong. Not luck, design.
He wrapped his hands and fed the fire. Outside, the wind still howled, but inside the battle was won. The town would still call it folly. But the heat that rose was no longer his alone. It was a truth he could give away. The storm passed, but Eric Lund's cabin stayed frozen. His wife and child huddled under threadbare blankets, breath frosting the air.
If that fool Hale can build a loft, so can I. I'll run a pipe through the roof.
He worked in secret, sawing planks above the cold room while his family shivered below. That night, he lit a fire in the loft. Smoke poured into the room within an hour. The child woke coughing, eyes wide with fear. The air was turning to poison. His wife pleaded with him to ask Hale for help, but Eric shook his head, jaw set.
I'll build a better vent. I won't beg that lunatic for anything.
But the child's cough grew harsh. That night, a fever took hold, and the cold clawed deeper. At midnight, Eric grabbed his coat and stumbled through the snow toward the fool's cabin. He stood on Christopher's doorstep, fist raised, every shred of pride stripped away by a child's rattling breath.
Please, Hale. My boy's lungs are full of smoke. He's dying.
You came with a rifle, called me a fool and worse.
I was wrong. The smoke had choked him. I need your design. Please.
Get inside. You'll need steady hands for this. I have a new vane, a pivot that keeps the wind at bay.
They trudged through the snow to Eric's cabin, Christopher's frostbitten fingers clutching an iron wind vane. In the freezing loft, he showed Eric how to mount the vane, a pivot that made the wind their ally. Together, they replaced the flawed pipe. the wind howling outside, but the smoke path now secure. They laid the child in the loft, wrapping him in quilts. The heat rose, gentle and certain. The boy opened his eyes and breathed without pain. Eric's wife collapsed against him, sobbing with relief.
I owe you my son's life. I called you a fool, but you had the truth all along.
Word crept through the settlement like frost. Eric Lund's boy lived. Some saw hope, others saw witchcraft. Christopher walked the frozen path to Samuel's lean-to, his bandaged hands aching in the bitter cold.
Hale, come see. We built the loft, just like you said.
Inside, the cabin smelled of fresh-cut pine. Above the hearth, a sleeping loft stretched neatly across the rafters.
Mr. Hale, look, I'm not cold anymore. Not even a little.
That's the rising heat. But did Samuel install the wind vane? The pivot above the chimney?
Samuel's smile flickered. He had built the loft but skipped the iron vane, hoping the calm would last.
Without it, a strong gust will reverse the draft. You'll wake in smoke. It nearly killed me. It nearly killed me.
Then we'll fix it. I won't lose her to the cold or the smoke.
More families were asking now. But if the method spread half-built, the consequences would be his burden. In the square, a loud voice named Garrick swore the old way was safe. He'd sleep above a high fire and prove the fool wrong.
I tried warning him. He laughed. If men like him build wrong, more children will choke.
That night, Eric looked at his boy, alive, breathing easy, and knew he couldn't stay silent. He called a town meeting. The barn was cold, shoulders hunched. Christopher stood in the back, bandaged hands folded.
I called Hale a fool. I was the fool. His loft saved my son.
He held up a model, a tiny cabin with a pipe, showing how smoke follows a separate path while heat rises. Murmurs rose. Some leaned forward, others crossed their arms.
Don't wait until your child is choking. The wind vane is the key. Ask Hale.
Christopher, from the back, gave a slight nod. Eric saw it, the animosity gone, replaced by a fragile truce. When the meeting broke, doubt still lingered. But Eric Lund had planted a seed, and the frost was waiting to test it. In the last mild days, they turned the whole settlement into a workshop. Families lined up with axes, lumber, and questions.
Measure twice. Saw once. The loft has to be level. Heat won't rise through a crooked floor.
Eric shouldered planks beside Christopher. Their frostbitten hands traded tools instead of grudges. He gathered the children around a tiny model cabin, lighting a candle to show how the air moved.
So the heat always goes up? Even when the wind is mean?
By noon, the northern sky turned a bruised purple. The elders called it the herald of a killing cold.
This one's going to freeze a man inside his own blankets. Tonight, we see if the method truly holds.
Garrick barricaded his door. He shouted that he wouldn't be gulled by a smoke trick on the coldest night in memory. Dusk came early. Those with lofts gathered their families close, uncertain. Those without prayed for a miracle. The cold front slid down the mountain like a glacier, and the column of heat was about to face its final trial. The cold descended like a weight. In the loft cabins, families slept with frost-laced windows, but warm skin beneath their quilts. Eric's boy slept easy under a low ceiling of warm air. The heat rose exactly as promised, but Christopher couldn't sleep. He sat by the fire, listening to the wind claw at the walls, knowing some refused the warmth. In a cabin across the valley, a family shivered beneath thin blankets, their breath a ghostly fog.
Hale, open up. It's Garrick's family. They're going to freeze. I heard him shouting his way is pure. Pure as an icebox.
We can't let stubbornness kill a family. Grab the rope and the heavy coats. We drag them out if we have to.
They layered wool and canvas, then shoved the door open. The night swallowed them in a white, screaming darkness. They bent into the wind, following a line they knew by heart. The cold bit through every seam. Inside Garrick's cabin, his wife pressed her lips to her shivering child's forehead, praying for a miracle that wouldn't come.
There. His door's barred. He'll fight us. Be ready, Hale.
They hammered on the door. Garrick's voice cut back, sharp as the cold. He'd freeze before he'd beg.
Your boy is turning blue. Open the door for him, not for us.
The bar scraped free. His wife threw the door open, her face a mask of terror.
Get them out. Wrap this child. I'll carry him.
They stumbled into the blizzard, the whitest cold they had ever felt. The infant lay still, lips gray. Garrick stumbled beside them, silent, staring at his child. His pride had turned to ice inside him.
Almost there. Keep moving. Your cabin is warm.
They spilled through the door into a wall of heat. The fire blazed, and the loft was waiting. They laid the family in the loft. The heat rose slowly, but the child's cheek pinkened first. Garrick broke down at the foot of the ladder, his thanks lost in sobs, but Christopher only nodded. The heat had spoken for him. Dawn broke on a settlement that had stared into the frozen dark and lived. Cabins with loft vents stood as monuments to a simple law. Those without bore frost scars, but no deaths. The town gathered in the trampled snow. Eric climbed onto a barrel, his voice rough but steady.
We were wrong. Christopher Hale took a law of nature and wrapped a town in its warmth.
He pinned a crude medal on Christopher's coat, hammered tin with a flame etched deep.
Heat rises. That's all.
His hand moved to his chest, pressing the locket beneath his shirt.
She knew it first. I only built the chimney.
Around him, children who should have frozen chased each other in the snow. The town cheered, but Christopher was already remembering another winter, another bed, another fire that hadn't risen enough. He slipped away from the cheers, toward a patch of ground where the snow had melted first. Kneeling, he laid a small stone on the marker, the only gift he could still give.
I did it, Clara. The heat rose. Not just for me, for all of us. Remember when you said heat rises? That was all it took. You saved this town.
The wind stilled. For a moment, he felt the warmth of her hand, not the cold of loss. He sat beside the grave until the first stars pricked the sky. The settlement had become a place where children no longer feared the dark. Anna and the others chased each other between the cabin walls, their laughter rising like the heat. He looked toward the chimneys, each one now a column of captured warmth.
She was gone, but the warmth she left behind was still rising. That was enough.
When the snows melted, the settlement had changed forever.
Every cabin we raise, we start with the loft and the vane. That's the law now. No exceptions.
Samuel taught the newcomers, his own hands now steady as Christopher's once were.
You should patent this hot air of yours, Hale. You could make a fortune.
Mr. Hale, will you teach my children someday too? I want them to know why we're warm.
Anna had grown strong, her laughter a constant in the village, a reminder of what the warmth had saved. He wrote letters, instructions, diagrams, sent to every struggling settlement that would listen.
You think they'll believe a man who was almost burned at the stake for this?
He smiled, not at the joke, but at the truth of it. The heat would speak for itself, and in the valley they once called folly, every chimney now carried a column of warmth, and with it, a second chance. One evening, as the summer sun bled into dusk, Christopher sat alone in his loft. He opened the locket and traced the tiny portrait with his thumb. Grief no longer stabbed. It had settled into something like warmth.
She never felt this warmth, but I carry it for both of us now.
Grief doesn't vanish. It settles. Like rising heat, it can warm a life if you let it. Outside, children laughed. The sound drifted through the window. No longer a wound.
Hale, you've been brooding in there long enough. Dinner's at my place. My wife won't take no.
He closed the locket, its chain cool against his chest. He pulled on his coat and opened the door. The cabin didn't feel empty as he left it. The fire still breathed, The loft still waited. The heat rose right to him and would be there when he returned. Eric's table was crowded with bowls and laughter. Christopher took a seat, not as a guest, but as family.
To the man who bent nature to will. May our children never know a cold bed again.
I drew something for you, Mr. Hale. A cabin with a fire that goes straight up.
It was a child's sketch. A house with a bed above, a flame below, and an arrow rising.
She understood. Even a child can see the law that saves them.
Later, he walked home under a clear sky, the stars themselves a silent column of light. He climbed into the loft. The fire below sent its steady gift upward.
This bed was never cold again. Not because of fire, because of purpose.
The heat rose right to him, and with it, a life worth living. He closed his eyes, and the column of warmth held him until dawn. The settlement grew into a town, and every new cabin rose with a loft and a vent. Children only knew that the highest bed was the warmest. They never questioned why. In the schoolhouse, a model cabin with a rising flame taught the law of heat to every child. An older Christopher lit the candle and let the smoke path demonstrate the separate ways of warmth and waste. His wife's locket sat on a shelf above the blackboard, a quiet companion to every lesson. At dusk, the town became a constellation of warm windows, each a column of rising heat. The law that had been called folly was now the foundation of life in the valley. Grief had not been erased, but transformed, a warmth that rose and gave life to a community. And in the end, the only testimony that mattered was whispered every night. The heat rises right to him. Fire downstairs, bed upstairs. The heat rose right to him. In the end, it was never about the fire that crackled below, nor the smoke that curled away into the night. It was about a law so simple that a child could sketch it with a piece of charcoal on a cold morning, about a love that refused to be buried in an icy grave, that insisted on rising, a love that became a column of heat, a truth that no winter could break. Grief did not vanish. It settled like a sun-warmed stone in a field of frost, and wherever that warmth reached, people woke from the stillness. They woke to find that the highest bed was the safest place in the valley, that the simplest truth could hold a life, a family, a community, and that a broken man's stubborn fire could become a town's very heartbeat. Fire downstairs, bed upstairs. The heat rose right to him.